Jules, and I'm here again on another interesting episode of Let's Talk. But today, guess who I'm speaking with? I'm speaking with my friend, my co-host, Yuli. So today, we're talking.
Yes.
All right, and so to just dive straight into it, we recently, I've had one or two cases or one or two instances where our friends, people we know, have had, unfortunately, lost their husbands, right? And amongst which is Mrs. Ubon King. We spoke to her recently, and listening to her was quite horrible experiences that she had to go through. I was saddened by it, and then it made me think that, okay, we need to have this discussion where we talk, which is what we do here, and take people through processes of help, how they can access help, what help is immediately available to them. And again, you know, we have different caliber of people. We have the people that are wealthy and because of their wealth, or because of maybe social cycles, or circles rather, because of the people that they know and the contact that they have, they can get help. Well, there are people that do not have all of this friends and support system exactly. So first of all, I'm going to ask you, this is just like what I've just done is in summary. I'm going to ask you first of all, I know you're not a psychologist, but what are the first signs, you know, what are the first things rather that you expect to happen when you have lost your husband and you're trying to get access to help?
Okay, so Jules, it's a very, should I say, sad experience, or better say, I think it's traumatic for you to suddenly realize your partner is no more, your husband is no more, and then you have to go through a life alone, and then maybe all the support you used to get is no more there. And then you have to face the harsh consequences. Sometimes you have to battle with family, sometimes you have to grapple with business concerns that you didn't know anything about. And then of course the huge responsibilities that suddenly becomes all your own. So a woman in that phase goes through the grief cycle, basically. Sometimes some people take grief or tackle grief differently. Some maybe stay in denial. It didn't happen, I think I'm dreaming. I'll wake up one day and then I'll realize it was a bad dream. So some live in denial, some tackle it head on, and then some just like they are lost, they don't know what to do. It's like they are sinking into one abyss of kind of despair and grief. They are depressed. So the issue of mental health arises because it's very real. They need legal support, they need counseling, they need spiritual help and support and prayers. And of course, just the social network being there, you know, like a buffer for them, it's so crucial. And any woman or any man for that matter, because I mean it happens to men too, because I mean honestly I heard a story a few days ago that a man lost his wife some years back and just went into isolation. I guess that was his own way of handling the grief. And then he cut off from every other person, all the family, all the friends, and he was alone trying to raise 3 children or so by himself, without help, support, nothing. And then recently he passed on, just some weeks back. And if few people were not just dogged and adamant, they kept checking on the children, they wouldn't have known. Because, I mean, all the support system, maybe that was the man's way of coping with the grief. He had cut it off. So now, no father, no mother. So the children are going to need a lot of help. So it affects both the children, the husband, the wife. But that was talking about the emotional angle or aspects which affects everybody.
Right.
So, but coming back to women now, most times you see these women wake up, of course they have to grapple with the fact that their husband is no more, and then they have to face the reality that the family assets are actually being targeted. Most times either by the extended family or maybe some business partners that just feel, oh, okay, it's time to grab.
Okay. So I'm so sorry to cut you in, but you said something vital, and I want to just hold that thought.
Yes.
But what you're going to do for us, we're going to go to, because here what we're talking about now is medicine after, how do you call it? Medicine after death, right? This is we can have preventives,
Yeah, we could prevent it. I mean, if we put some systems and
into
structure in
place.
place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here now we're talking about it has happened, there's no structure. Take it from there.
So it's happened and there is no structure. But most times the spouses or the deceased husband did not really, sometimes, I mean from experience, I'm talking from experience.
Yeah.
Sometimes the wives don't even know what the assets are in the family, owned by the family. So first of all, they have to do that asset and collection, you know. They have to know what do we have.
Okay.
You know, make sure that nothing is lost. Maybe get a legal practitioner involved that can help them, you know, consolidate what their estate is about, their assets, and then of course if they have liabilities in terms of loans. I mean, because I've handled such matters personally in my legal practice. So maybe there was a loan element that's running. So you would now know, okay, these are the assets, and then these are the liabilities that needs to be sorted out. Do you understand? And then if the person had died intestate in law, that means the deceased died without a will in place. And that makes it a lot more complicated because now there is no will, and then depending on the nature of the kind of marriage that was done. So a lot of things will play out. If it was just customary or traditional marriage, like most people would do, they will not want to take the trouble of going through the marriage under the act, or what we call court marriage generally, you know. Then the rules that will come into play would have to be the customary rules of inheritance. Okay. Do you understand? Okay. So they will now go back to the tradition of the man. Normally, and you know, in our typical African tradition, the property most times devolves through the patriarchal line, through the family line of the man. So most times the woman will find out that she actually is the one trying to fight to get her husband's asset back, to even think of how she'll be able to maybe raise the children of the marriage, or maybe take care of herself. So if there was no will in place, one of the first things I would normally advise is to go ahead and apply for what we call a Lateral Administration. Do you understand?
Can you explain that to us?
Okay, that happens when, like I've said, the spouse died without a will in place. Now, if there had been a will, then the will would regulate how the assets would be, you know, divided and all of that, who's entitled to what and when and all of that. But when there is no will, then you will now have to apply for a Lateral Administration through the probate registry, the High Court Probate Division. So that's the part that has to do with wills and all of that. So you apply, it's a long process, and yeah, it is, because I mean, you have to look at the assets, bring it back, they have to be valued, and then there will be some tax elements. So please, I think most I would advise advise people to, even if you don't want to do a will, during your dependency of your life, when you're still alive, maybe you should actually think of doing a grant, giving gifts. You understand? Deed of gift. I give this to my son, I give this to my wife, and let it be documented, because all that is documented in law, we call it gift intervivals, when they're still alive, giving this gift. So it is known, it's registered as a gift duly given. So it cuts off all that trouble. And then another thing you could even do that makes it a lot even easier is when you're acquiring your assets. Let your name and that of your wife be on the documents.
Okay, so two things you mentioned now. First of all, gifts to your relatives, to your immediate family while you're still alive.
Yes.
And then whenever you want to acquire property,
anything.
Acquiring your name and
that of your wife. You understand? And if you have children that are not minors, but I mean they've reached the age, 18 and above, their names can actually also be part of your title documents. Do you understand? We have a company, let them be part of the directors, board of directors. That would help in case you are not in the picture. Naturally, the properties just devolves to the surviving or the contestable. Yeah, it's not contestable. It's not as if some people will try to fight, but at least they have that cushion, that protective edge of the law, just like, to protect them. So even if anything is being contested, they can also show superior proof of title themselves. Do you understand? And with little or no cost, because if you have done this before, you've been forward thinking and maybe as a man to plan ahead, that's what you should actually do. Or when in an instance or in a situation where you did not, maybe you didn't know, or you were not that forward thinking, then your survivors, the beneficiaries of the estate, which is most times of course the wife, the children, and any dependents, maybe your aged parents if they're still alive, and maybe your siblings have been depending on you, you understand, but then of course they will now have to apply, applying to the administrators of your estates now on the Lateral Administration, and of course it's a long procedural process, cost and all. So if you have to go through that route, you should know that you're bracing up yourself for a lot of things, because there could be contests and there could be caveats, and they'll come out and say, no, you're not entitled to this, we should be the ones applying. And you see a lot of these things coming up a lot, and you should remember this woman that is grieving already dealing with a lot of emotional issues, and then the reality of having to raise the children by herself, and then coming to add this on top of it, I think it's just too much. So I think it's better to plan ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so one question just popped into my mind when you talk about forward thinking and all of that in this day and age.
Yeah.
So I've had a situation where a dear friend of mine told me, okay, so she broached the subject with her husband and says to him, dude, do you have a will? I mean, you have to write it. And they say, oh, you want me to die? Are you planning, my quick exit, or like what's the idea behind you? So what do you advise? I mean, because it's still funny that we have men that are adamant, even in this day and time.
With all the education.
With all the education and forward thinking and whatever, you still have men that think their wives are the witches that want them dead fast. What do you advise? What would you tell a woman? Is there like a subtle way, or would you just come out there and just tell the man already, guys, go ahead and do what you need to do?
I think education and enlightenment is key. And most times, some places of work actually organize seminars in terms of all this estate and protection and all of that. So they actually get to hear, if they have a good structure in their company, they are being advised well ahead of time once they hit maybe like 50, 40 something. You understand that you should start having this kind of plan in place. Do you understand me? And then of course sometimes the woman might not, depending on the nature of the dynamics of their relationship, she might not be the best person to go and say, guys, get a will in place. But if you have a family vision and you have a family plan in place, there are certain milestones that as you hit maybe when we turn 50, we should do this, or we turn, you understand, you should have this in place, or 40s, or who knows, or 50s. So maybe you should just plan it as part of maybe the milestones that you're marking, maybe when you're doing your anniversary, and all of these things. So that will make it a little bit easier, because the reality of life is this. If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. That's the truth. That's the truth.
Yeah, because you have men putting it off. I still have my life.
Yes,
I still have a long way ahead of me, and they just keep putting it off.
Yeah.
But then again, we need to mention that this is not saying to you that we as wives or women what you did. No, this is just stating the obvious. The fight that we as women, the widows particularly, have to go through, to just live comfortable lives. Maybe we'll get a psychologist on to tell us the reason behind why the relatives just wait, in the shadows, so to speak, until the husband, brother, dies, and then they just pounce, show their evilness or wickedness.
Well, sometimes it's not that they are evil per se. I've come to see that there is this strong control of culture and tradition that takes over. So they feel they're actually right, they're doing the right thing. They're trying to keep the assets in the family. But then you should ask, which one is the primary and the first family? Is it the extended family or the immediate family of the deceased?
And then even if they try to keep the assets in the family, they don't cater for the children.
Yes, the dependents. Yeah, I mean, honestly, recently I got a call, and I mean, with the nature of my work, I come across all of these things often. And what happened was the woman died intestate, and she had lost her husband many years ago, and she had a property, landed property, house, and she was survived by just one daughter as an adult. And it baffles me that the daughter told me that, look, maybe mom passed on. Her brothers came, and one of the first things they asked me for was the title to the land document. And she had to look at her uncles. I was like, excuse me, why do you need the title document? I've always lived in this house with my mother, and I know that I can keep this. Okay, then they gave her the excuse that, oh, we want to keep it safe for you, we want to make sure it's safe. So she said, no, I can keep it safe myself, and I keep my own every credential safe, and all that documents in this house. So this one is not going to be an exception. So I mean, it was so hilarious for me because I mean, I felt, come on, who does that?
Exactly.
Who does that?
Those things that we take for granted.
Yes, so this is not extended for me to say, but these are your mom's direct siblings coming to say, give us the title documents of our sister's property. And meanwhile, you are the daughter that naturally is the first dependent and beneficiary of your mom's estate. So it happens every day, honestly. And I think women should be more enlightened now that because they got it in your own name, if that understanding is there.
Okay.
Do you understand? I mean, you should, if you can afford it, own your own property and plan yourself.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Right, but so that's another angle.
Yes.
You know, if you have the relationship, if you have your cordial relationship and all of that, so you can do that.
Yes.
No, that's enough. And this will bring in another angle.
What's in your name?
Right. And this brings another angle because of what you raised about the woman and her daughter that the brothers had to go. So either way, whoever is getting the property, just make sure it is well documented.
Oh yes, you can.
In the names of your dependents, relatives, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Your documentation is key.
Okay.
And when it comes to documentation, please don't put Mr. and Mrs. blah blah blah. Make sure you put Mr. so, as in his first name, his second name, or maybe surname. And then yours, your first name, second name, surname. Because Mrs. somebody. Oh, yes.
And say that.
Because you never can tell. There could be so many other Mrs. somebody.
Right.
But there can never be a Mrs. same first name like yours, same second name like yours. Yeah, so you have to be specific in your documentation.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so you hear that?
Yes. So if you really want to protect your family, it's best to have the names of your dependents, at least your wife and your children, the ones, like I already said, the ones that are a little bit more, and no minors, you know, adults up to age 18, because they are of the age of contractual age. That's what they can enter into a contract with the sale of land, you know, they can be directors in the company and all of that. So if you do all of this documentation right, I mean, even if there is no will in place, to a large extent, the family is secure, is fortified. Because what's the essence of working so hard? And then there is no plan on how to, you know, protect and consolidate your estate for posterity when you are not there. Do you understand? It's crucial. So information is key. Information is key. Get the right legal advice. Do you understand? Right. Even when you're when you're beginning to build your estate, get the right legal advice. And then another thing I would equally would love to say is this. Remember, if you have to go through the route of the Lateral Administration and all of that, it's quite expensive. Most times the tax element, because the government will take their chunk of the tax and all of that. Sometimes, at the end of the day, what will be left in your estate for your dependents might be little or nothing, depending on, you know, how large your estate was. So if you had gotten your documentation right, you understand, even without the will, the family still, I mean, it's on the dry.
We've heard that both men and women protect your assets. Okay, so then something comes to my mind again. Yeah, we're just looking at all the angles. Okay. So what happens is, now that women know that assets and property is in contest when particularly the man dies, so they go behind and buy the property. Yeah, but that's not very healthy. Yeah. Because then you're being shady. What you're actually doing is protect yourself. So that when they come at you and take the property from you, you won't be thrown out into the street. You know, so we can't say this enough. You know, we can't overemphasize.
Whatever works for you that is within the ambit of the law, please do it.
Do it, right?
Yes, that would be my candid advice.
Okay. Tell me all the
it can't be one step fits all.
Right.
Every family has its own unique dynamic situation. So whatever works for you, get proper legal advice and counsel and seek how you can protect your assets and such that your estate can continue to provide for the beneficiaries even when you're not there. Even if one person happens to get out of the picture, everybody's still okay. I mean, to a large extent.
Yes. So that's the most important message to put out there: protect your assets for eventualities. Right. So now we didn't protect assets. We're in this situation. Where can I come to for help? Just put that out there.
Okay. Depending on the dynamics of your situation, like I mentioned, certainly you need the legal support. Of course, you need the counseling and to keep your mental stability intact. I mean, through your breathing, so that you don't sink into deep depression and all of that. So, I mean, you have to need someone that can serve as a counselor, someone that can give you sound legal advice for your estate, and of course, I mean, even for your investment too. I mean, because at the end of the day, when you look at or get on the estate and when it comes to look at what you have, you need advice on how to continue to manage this estate and how to continue to make it thrive. You understand, and to bring in income for you. And then of course, if you have liabilities, how best to manage your liabilities so you don't get out of proportion and all of that. So you need those people with those competencies to advise you. And sometimes these things cost money. Do you understand? So some organizations, I'm sure there are some churches, maybe some religious organizations that do offer, some angels who offer this kind of services, sometimes programs. There are some that are targeted at helping to support women. Do you understand? So maybe we can look out for such. And of course, even if you need to go through the route of, I mean, I've actually handled a case before as a mediator, and there was a lot of issues in the estate. The man had passed on, there was no will, and they actually approached the mediation center to help them to discuss how they're going to manage the rental income. Because I mean, already they were in court, but since the suit had not been determined in terms of ownership rights now. Do you understand? This was a man that had like 2 wives, and you can imagine that kind of setting. So I mean, the older wife against the younger wife, and then the family element also. So we had it was a wonderful mix, But at least you can pick and choose aspects of it. So at least for management of rent and all of that, you can actually approach like a mediation center and get who gets what rent when. Pending when the ownership of the property is, the suit in the court is finally settled. So these are some of the things you can actually do. Honestly, yes.
Oh, thank you. Any free names that you can drop? Any? Numbers?
For instance, you can settle your cases for free at the Citizens Petition Center in Lagos State. I can say that for sure. And you have them almost in all the local government areas. So you can just Google Citizens Mediation Center, and it's completely free for those in Lagos State. So I'm sure other states might have some of such support system. Maybe the Ministry of Women Development and those ministries that focus on women, children rights and issues and all of that. Then you can equally maybe even approach Office of the Public Defender. That's another parcel of the ministry, under the Ministry of Justice. They handle cases for free also. So that's where you can equally access legal help if you want legal help and maybe you can already afford it. Do you understand? You could do that there. And a couple of NGOs, both locally and internationally. So if you just search, go out there and search. You understand? I'm sure you will get the help and the support you need.
So thanks, Judy. Thanks for putting all of that out there, because it's important for especially our viewers. We can have people that are watching us and they're saying, "You guys are speaking too much English. Where can we get help?" So kindly send us an email if you ever need help, if you fall into any circumstance or situation where you need immediate mediation. Send us an email. Send us shout out to us. We'll get you help, won't we?
Yeah, sure, Jules. I mean, that's why we're here.
That's why we're here. So thanks, guys. Thanks so much for hanging on. Thanks so much for staying tuned. And don't forget, let's keep this conversation going. As always, it's Jules and Judy on Let's Talk. Peace out. See you in a minute.